Section 19 of the Arbitration Act allows the arbitral tribunal to form its own procedures, and it's not bound by the complex procedures of CPC. So depending on the various requirements of the parties to the dispute, let's say if they do not want evidence to be led on their dispute because the nature of the dispute is such that does not necessitate the evidences to or expert evidences to be brought on to prove their claims, that aspect is kept aside, and that also leads to saving time, and eventually it leads to a speedier disposal of the case. Now there is an imposition on the time limits with respect to arbitration cases. The arbitral tribunal needs to adopt a framework or a strategy or a structure so that it can enhance the the conduct of the arbitration in a speedy and effective manner, and time limits, which is 1 year from the time of filing of the case before the arbitral tribunal. Now, there is also another thing that ad hoc arbitrations are generally a private system of adjudication of the dispute or resolution of the disputes. On the contrary, arbitration, mostly they like if we look into the international arbitration scenario, the most important institutional arbitrations are the LCIA, London Court of International Arbitration, and then we have very important institutional arbitrations across the world, which provides you with a tailor-made procedure, set of rules which governs the entire conduct of the arbitration between the parties. So in that case, the exercise of defining each and every step that will conduct or that will govern the arbitration process is taken away. That generally the parties to the dispute in arbitration, in ad hoc arbitration, has to deal with. So institutional arbitration, in case of institutional arbitration, there are already established procedural rules that governs the entire arbitration, and which saves a lot of time and also speeds up the process of dispute resolution. So encouraging institutional arbitration, we find that most of the times the government, as in our case, as in the Indian, under the Indian Act of Arbitration, we have Arbitral Council, which is established under the current act, and that institutionalizes or establishes the fact that arbitration needs to be institutionalized in our country for the various perks and benefits that institutional arbitration has to give to the parties. Now, it also reduces the fact that the scope of court intervention has been reduced over the years through various amendments, both at the pre-arbitration and post-arbitration stage, serves as a very important factor why arbitration is given or is recognized to be a preferred mode of investment of dispute resolution, either in commercial or investment or other disputes. So then there is also stringent provisions of law that discourages filing frivolous applications which challenges the arbitral awards. Now, Section 34 is very crucial in this regard, which actually provides a very narrow and a very zoned down scope of grounds whereby the parties can challenge the arbitral awards. And there has been plenty of landmark judgments where the Supreme Court has stated that Section 34 should be cautiously used so that it actually enhances or actually allows in the effective execution or enforcement of the arbitral awards. Now, there are also provisions which discourages delays by introducing a more cost realistic or more realistic cost regime. So this also, not only the legal framework allows you to design the arbitration procedure, but also allows the court to effectively allow the arbitral or the parties to structure a realistic cost structure or framework to that leads to the effective disposal of the cases. So these are the important and very crucial reasons why which has been actually improved. The Indian landscape earlier wasn't the same as we have it today. Through various amendments and landmark judgments of the Supreme Court, we have seen that starting from 1940 to 2021 today, the entire arbitration landscape has improved and improvised with specifically what the intention of the lawmakers and the judiciary has been to reduce the scope of court intervention and allow the arbitral tribunal more power and autonomy to dispose of the case according to the law. Moving on, what is arbitrable? Now we have to know that what are the arbitral tribunals capable of adjudication. So here we know that arbitral tribunals have been always considered capable of adjudicating every civil or commercial dispute. Now, the nature of civil or commercial dispute is such that it should like the civil court should be capable of deciding these commercial or civil disputes. Now, but there are certain clauses or certain they are subject to certain important covenants here. Let's see what are the three important covenants. Now we have to understand that arbitration or adjudication, under the covenants, one is the arbitration agreement. So arbitration can only take place if the parties to the dispute have an arbitration agreement signed between them. In case where there is no arbitration agreement signed between the parties, where the dispute can be taken to, or the dispute arising between the parties out of a contract will be adjudicated upon. So there is no inherent power of the parties the parties who can actually take, one of the parties cannot take the dispute to the arbitral tribunals. Now, the existence of the arbitration agreement or even an arbitration clause which allows the parties to be governed by the arbitration law needs to be in place. So this is one of the predominant condition which allows a commercial or civil dispute to be adjudicated by arbitral tribunals. The second is the party or the parties to the dispute should have the power, should have given each other the power through the contracts that they have, or through the contractual arrangements signed between them, that they are, one of the parties should be able to refer the dispute to arbitration. So this actually indicates that the importance of arbitration clause in the contracts, or let's say a separate arbitration agreement, is of utmost importance and significance in relation to having a dispute arbitrated through resolved through arbitration of adjudication and separation, which in other words is refers to the arbitrability of the matters. So the dispute should be under the power of the arbitration tribunal or the arbitral tribunal, that they should have the power to adjudicate and settle the dispute by arbitration, which brings us to the second point. The second point mainly says that what types of disputes are not arbitrable by the arbitration. So in the first point, we have seen that disputes which are capable of being adjudicated by civil and commercial adjudicated by arbitration are civil and commercial disputes which can be decided by a civil court. So if a particular commercial or a civil dispute which falls under the jurisdiction of a civil court and can be adjudicated by a civil court, that those kinds of those types of civil or commercial dispute can also be adjudicated by arbitral tribunals. So there should not be a confusion here but then the writing the factors to this to this power of arbitral tribunals before adjudication is that this power to adjudicate a dispute should be governed by the arbitration agreement or the arbitration clause in a particular contract, which has been, the terms of which has been violated. The parties has given their consent. The consent has to be given to arbitration that such dispute arising out of the contract or contractual arrangement between the parties are can be subject to arbitration. And the third is the subject matter should not be outside the purview of its arbitrability. So it should be capable of being settled and adjudicated by the arbitral tribunals. So if we see the second point, criminal offenses, matrimonial disputes and guardianship matters, insolvency and winding up matters, testamentary matters, eviction or tenancy matters, trust deed and the trust act matters, patent, trademarks and copyright issues, antitrust or competition laws, bribery are some of the most important types of disputes that are not that cannot be resolved by adjudication. So when we talk about the scope of arbitration or the importance of arbitration, the entire discussion boils down to the factor that why arbitration should be preferred over litigation. Now, there has to be very strong reasons as to why a person, like a party to a dispute, should want to take the help of arbitration over the traditional litigation procedures that we have in place. In the beginning, as I have mentioned, that the Indian judicial system at the moment is overburdened with the ever-rising number of cases. There are less number of judges, and given the system that is there in place or the mechanisms that is there in place, it actually is not it doesn't readily facilitate the early dismissal or early disposal or quick disposal, or let's say the procedure is very complex due to the complexities of the procedures and the, let's say, the ease of adjournment, the facility that is there, where adjournments can take the councils can take as many number of adjournments. So these kind of procedural complexities make it very difficult for business community or the companies to go to the litigation or the courts of law or adopt litigation for that matter. Now let's see what are the pros, which are very important features as well of arbitration procedures. Like as I said, party autonomy or the consent of the parties or the freedom of the parties to decide whether a particular kind of dispute will be submitted to the forum, arbitration forum or not, is one of the most important feature of arbitration. And that is a advantageous feature of arbitration. Now we know that arbitration actually is an informal way of settling disputes or resolving dispute between two parties. So the main cornerstone of arbitration or commercial arbitration is party autonomy. Now, what do you mean by party autonomy? In very simple terms, it means that the party has the complete power to decide the entire arbitration process, starting from the type of the disputes that will be subject to settlement through arbitration, to the the entire procedure of resolving the dispute through arbitration, appointment of the arbitrators who like both the parties have their autonomy to bring their arbitrators of choice in the panel, and they can also choose both of them by with consent, with their with their consent can also appoint a sole arbitrator. So there is a lot of autonomy given to the parties under arbitration. Now, when the party has already consented to the arbitration, to the dispute being settled through arbitration, it also leads to the fact that they have control over the entire arbitration process, which also leads them to understand which the addition or to which steps needs to be taken, and which are the steps which needs to be taken, and which are the steps which may not be taken and can be waived off in the current in the current dispute that is being challenged or that is being resolved through arbitration. Now, it also has the advantage of speedier resolution of disputes based on the prescribed time limits. So within the prescribed time limits, the parties needs to file their cases before the arbitral tribunal, and once the arbitral tribunal has taken cognizance of the matter and has decided their own competence, whether they are competent enough to decide the matter at hand, within a period of 1 year, the arbitral tribunals are supposed to dispose of the case. Now, the let's understand one important aspect here. There are when a dispute between two parties arises, the law allows the parties to actually go and apply for interim relief before the courts of law, to or also take interim relief in terms of stays and stuff on in respect of that dispute before the dispute has been filed before the arbitral tribunal. That process has also been regulated by the Indian Arbitration Act, and the interim reliefs will be only granted where there are very important and sound reasons on which the interim reliefs should be granted to the opposing party. Now, on the other hand, when the arbitral tribunal has decided the case and has pronounced its arbitral award, there is enforcement procedures which kicks in. Now, in the enforcement procedure, the party which might have lost the case, they might challenge the arbitration award on the grounds that are available with them under the Indian Arbitration Act under Section 34. Now, with the recent amendments, the scope of Section 34 has been narrowed down by the Parliament, and they do not want that the other party to misuse Section 34, to stall the enforcement procedure, the process of enforcing the arbitral award. So basically, the Indian judiciary, along with the lawmakers, have taken cognizance, they have taken notice of these loopholes that earlier was present in the Indian Arbitration Act, because of which, and the only intention is to facilitate speedier resolution of disputes. So coming down to the fourth point, which is confidentiality. Now, unlike litigations that take place in the courts of law, which is an open, which is open to the public, they have the right to know what is happening in the court of law, like how the entire matter was adjudicated, which is a cornerstone again of our democratic, system. It is very unlike the arbitration is very much unlike the litigation, which allows the parties to actually give consent to having the entire arbitration process to be a confidential affair. Now they do not want like most of the business like the parties to the disputes are large corporations and companies where important like aspects of their business will be discussed and deliberated upon, and will also be put to adjudication before the arbitral tribunal. They would not want their customers or consumers to be affected by the fact that their like what I was actually saying is they do not want their the public to know what could be actually could harm their reputation in the public. So confidentiality also again kicks in only when both the parties gives their consent to confidentiality. There are many cases where the entire procedure of or the process of arbitration is not disclosed to the public, but the cause of action, the nature of the dispute, and the final award or the outcome is brought to the public domain, so that it also remains transparent with respect to the kind of matter that has been arbitrated upon. So confidentiality is again one of the areas where party is has its power to decide. Now let's come to the finality of outcome, or the arbitral tribunals have the power to bind the parties upon their consent with the arbitral award. The award that is passed, or the arbitral decision at the end, after at the end of the adjudication of the dispute, is generally binds the parties, and they cannot appeal to another higher court of law. So there is a finality of outcome, and which also stops the floodgate of appeal going to the higher courts of law. That also gives credibility to the arbitral awards. Now you have simplified an informal process. We have already seen that arbitral process is simplified because the parties have the autonomy to design and structure their arbitral processes, or and it is informal in nature. Then there is prevention of hostility. Well, in litigation, most of the times there are, there are like, cases where both the parties turn hostile, or there are examples of hostility between the parties. In arbitration process, most of the times, because the arbitration, because the disputes takes place between two commercial parties, they want to keep their business relations intact, and therefore, because the consent of both the parties are required, and and it is autonomous, decision making there. That leads to the prevention of hostility between the parties. So they want, in the future, they want to have a good business relation, so they do it with the consent of both the parties. The entire procedure of arbitration is consensual in nature. So we know what is control now, which is akin to party autonomy. And then we have flexibility in the ability to select the arbitrators from the pool of arbitrators, the seat, the venue, and the scheduling of arbitration proceedings. There is a lot of flexibility that can be done in arbitration process. Now there is facilitation of recurring future business relationships between the future business or future relationships between the concerned parties, which is almost akin to the point that hostility is by far prevented in arbitration matters. And there is lesser judicial interference in the process of arbitration, which means that the parties cannot at every step go and apply for a relief from the court, asking the court to interfere with the help of a order to be passed upon a particular step, or at a particular segment of the arbitral proceedings. So the idea of having arbitration in place means arbitration should actually act as an autonomous judicial body which enhances the quicker and speedier and effective resolution of disputes between the parties. Having more of judicial interference would mean that the effectiveness of arbitration as a dispute resolution mechanism is undermined. So the pros includes the lesser judicial interferences. So going to the cons of arbitration. Now, as we know that one of the disadvantages of having arbitration or a dispute settled through arbitration is the limited scope of appeal. Now, and this can be viewed in two ways. Firstly, there will be no finality to the outcome of the resolution of dispute through arbitration if there was a scope to appeal, and the scope to appeal was a widened scope. So under section 34 of the Indian Arbitration Act, we see that the grounds on which arbitration award can be challenged are very narrow. So which means that the party should be willing to accept the arbitral award as final and binding at the end of the adjudication by arbitration. Now, there is this understanding that if we allow the scope of appeal to be extended and wide, there will be no end to the dispute, and that could also incur massive losses to the corporate the companies or the parties in dispute, which also inherently would increase the cost, and the time and efficiency of the entire process would come under question. So now the other con is that we do not have, or we lack, a specialist arbitration bar, which also gives highlights the point that there is a lot of scope for arbitration practice to develop in terms of or at par with the international arbitration practice. So we still do not have a pool or we do not have a specialization where arbitration is taken as a a niche area. Arbitration as of today stands to be much similar to what the traditional legal practice is all about. Just that the process is quite different from the process that is there in the usual or traditional litigation. Now there is also reluctance on the parties, on the part of the parties, counsel and courts to appoint arbitrators from the outside of the pool of retired judges and people who have established their career in the arena of arbitration. So this has resulted in arbitrations being routinely conducted like an extension of the court system, with arbitrators willing to apply the procedural rules of court as a matter of course. Now there are two things here. The first is the parties, they are reluctant to, the parties, counsel or the courts, they appoint arbitrators from the designated pool of retired judges and arbitrators on their panel. This is one important factor that leads to this there is this revolving door in the pool of arbitrators, pool or the panel of arbitrators that are there. So they generally take arbitrators from the pool who are or by the arbitrators with long-standing experience in arbitration or the retired judges. Now, what happens is when the retired judges again are routinely appointed to be arbitrators in arbitration matters, the system or the process or the procedure of arbitration becomes like an extension of the court system, where the arbitrators, they willingly apply the procedural rules of court as a matter of course. So one thing is, we do not want the arbitration to become another extension of the court system. So there has to be, the fact, we have to understand the fact that arbitration is an informal process. The time, the autonomy of the parties, consent of the parties in understanding and deciding how the arbitration is going to be arbitration is going to be conducted should be informal in nature, which should not be as lengthy or as complex as the procedural system of the traditional courts are. So this is one of the main drawbacks that the parties face with respect to arbitration. Then there is a lack of proper transcription facilities in India, which results in hearings taking significantly longer hours than they should, and which also reduces the cost and time efficiencies of arbitration. Now, there are lack of arbitral institutions which are at par with the international counterparts. Though we do have Indian arbitral institutions, but I feel that their procedures and the rules and the facilities that they provide needs to be more at par with the international institutional arbitrations or arbitral institutions. So if we want to promote arbitral institutions to be the forum for the arbitrations at large, they also needs to enhance, improvise and modify their existing set of rules. We have MCIA, which is an private arbitral institution based at Bombay, which is recognized to be one of the very effective and efficient arbitral institution, in addition to the one that is there at Delhi. Also, we have a couple of arbitrations which do host arbitrations in the south, like the Nani Palkiwala arbitral institution. And there are others also, other private arbitral institutions also, which allow private parties to come and use their facilities in the discharge of their disputes through arbitration. Now, with regard to one important aspect that currently India lacks, is a legal framework with regard to the third-party funding. So since we do not have a legal framework or a law that governs the third-party funding in India, like third-party funding is a mechanism through which the entire dispute is funded by a external company or external party. So the regulations that need to come in to regulate the extent of the involvement of the third party funding in India with respect to that particular party in dispute needs immediate attention. And therefore, we can also say that the 2021 amendment to the made to the 1996 Act creates uncertainty in the Indian arbitration regime. We have the 2021 amendment has made significant changes to the section 31, which actually alters the scheme of the arbitration and gives power to the courts to adjudicate upon the the cases of which challenges the arbitral awards. So that actually has set that has actually created uncertainty in the arbitration regime, because it has altered the scope of and objectives of the Arbitration Act per se, which is to have more autonomy given to the arbitral tribunals with terms in terms of the providing finality to the outcome of the arbitral awards. Now, arbitration in post-COVID-19 era. Now, we know that with the pandemic being in place since the past 1.5 years, we have seen that a much chaotic situation has come in place, and as a result of which arbitration, for that matter, litigation or resolution of disputes through arbitration or traditional litigation has been severely affected. But on the contrary, the positive aspect that needs to be seen is the advancement and the improvisation that has been done by the judiciary and the court system, that they have adopted technology to enhance or to facilitate the resolution of disputes through e-courts and through the virtual online, like let's say the facilities that's there. Now, digital arbitration or let's say online arbitration, most of the important, let's say, arbitral institutions internationally have come up with standards of procedure which actually governs the arbitrations that are administered under the arbitral institutions. Let's say ICC, SIAC, WIPO, LCIA, also the Indian arbitral regime has also adopted the protocols that allows for arbitrations to be conducted with the help of virtual conferences or virtual online meetings and virtual conferences. Though there are problems that arise at technical, procedural, legal and existential challenges with respect to using virtual technology while adjudication of the dispute, but still the future of arbitration seems to look like technology assisted arbitration, or the future looks towards online dispute resolution, which includes online or digital arbitration or digital litigation, or the e-court system for that matter. So the mechanisms have been deployed that facilitates the rules that governs online the adjudication of disputes through the processes of arbitration. What we actually will be getting to see in the post-COVID era is the fact that though there is no substitute of physical arbitrations, digital arbitration can actually be very cost effective and can also enhance can be cost effective, can be saving time of the parties, of the counsels in traveling from one country to another, let's say, and the use of advanced technologies which can facilitate the while the cross examinations are happening, while taking evidence, which is very important, the use of advanced technology or advanced cameras that can allow the process of taking evidence to be fair, to be transparent, will also be a game changer in the in the era where during the times where digital arbitration would slowly grow and also be adopted in addition to the physical mode of conducting arbitrations. So online dispute resolution is slowly growing, but it has potential. It has the let's say the capability to deliver fair and let's say effective resolution of disputes or fair outcomes of dispute. So we will be seeing as to how India can cope with the transition from the traditional methods of dispute resolution to the technology assisted methods of resolving disputes, not only in arbitration but also in litigation. So we can see more of technology taking place, technology assisting the procedures involved in arbitration and litigation. So coming to the factors, like what are the key skills of an arbitration lawyer? Now, any lawyer needs to they need to have mastered the art of advocacy. There is no dispute to that fact. And along with the mastering of that art of advocacy, you need to have an earnest willingness to learn and perform the mundane tasks that are involved in preparing the case. So no, you need to be a keen learner, and also you need to be a performer with attention to the details. You need to have you need to know how to prepare the documents. You need to know how to let's say manage the cases, manage the formats of the documents, and very minute in a minute way, without trying to execute the work without any errors. So you need to have this willingness to learn, plus you need to also deliver your tasks with attention to the details, and a very you know um, you need to understand what are the documents that can actually lead to preparing the case in an effective manner. So apart from that, you need to have the working knowledge of the laws and rules. uh, in arbitration, you need to know how to structure the ad hoc arbitration, or for that matter, if you are going to administer or conduct the arbitration in an arbitral institution, you need to be conversant with the rules that govern the or the govern the procedure of arbitration under the arbitral institution. uh, you have to prepare the cases with all minute uh, you know error free, the being prepare the cases without any errors, I'm sorry. And also with attention to the details, you need to have so that there is less errors in the documents. Then in addition to having the formal education in the law schools, you should also find out specialized institutions which only train you in arbitration or ADR mechanisms, and obtain certifications from such leading institutions that train lawyers to effectively conduct the arbitrations or other ADR mechanisms of dispute resolution. In addition to that, you should also write articles and enhance your writing skills. uh, there has to be you should be visible in the community, in the legal community, where you actually take hold of your where you share your opinions, then case law analysis, if you can write research papers and share your knowledge. While you do this, you should understand one thing, that the more you write articles and the more you start sharing your opinion, your understanding of the law develops and is enhanced. Now, you should always be on the lookout of opportunities to work in the arbitration field. And there is no substitute to hard work. There is no substitute to investing your time and energy into understanding the entire subject to the details. Moving forward, let's talk about the future and scope of arbitration practice in India. Now, India's vision of self-dependence, let's say, uh, which is more emphasized during the pandemic, heavily depends on the foreign investment. This is just one aspect of which highlights the scope of arbitration practice that I have included in this slide. So if India actually if visualizes itself to become self-dependent, not be dependent on the other countries for procuring materials and to enhance its economy, it has to the investments should come from the foreign countries. And therefore there is the role of foreign investment cannot be under emphasized in this vision of India. Now, when we talk about in foreign investment, like a foreign investor or a company or a foreign company, by looking at the environment, the ease of doing business index of India, which actually lets the foreign investors understand whether investing in a segment of the Indian economy would be profitable to them or not. they would also, decide whether to invest or heavily, invest in a particular segment. Now, one of the important criteria of ease of doing business index for India is to have a arbitration friendly environment. Again, um, going back to what we discussed, arbitration has the advantage. The advantages of arbitration overweighs disadvantages. The disadvantages can be worked upon, but having given the fact that arbitration is more advantageous to litigation owing to the the flexibility and the informality of the procedure, and the given the underlying perks and benefits of arbitration, with respect to the reputation of the company which has entered into a dispute with another company, or for that matter another party, allows the foreign investors to come and invest in India. So the growth of arbitration law practice, like with the with the rise in the inflow of foreign direct investment in the recent past, even in the during the COVID times, the inflow of FDI in India has been on the rise. So which means that foreign investors are readily investing in India. They also have the knowledge that the arbitration law practice is opening up, is liberalizing itself, and is trying to modify itself according to the international arbitration law practice. So which means that the scope and the scope of arbitration practice in India is quite bright, and the way forward for resolving disputes or commercial, international commercial disputes, or even for that matter, domestic, disputes, is quite, it looks to be on the brighter side. Now, what is required for, the scope of arbitration, for a better, arbitration practice in India? We need an efficient dispute resolution framework, and that is absolutely essential, quintessential to attract foreign investors to the country, and thereby it necessitates the need to have a robust legal framework that supports arbitration and other forms of ADR mechanisms. Now, it is very important for us to understand that the arbitration is conducted, or the entire arbitration mechanism or process is governed by the Indian Arbitration Act, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996, which has been amended up to 2021. Now, not only the legal framework, but also the judicial support coming from the Supreme Court of India through judicial precedents. That goes very significantly to make an efficient dispute resolution framework. Only when only then the the foreign investors or the foreign companies would be willing to invest in India, because they know that the enforcement of their contracts, the the contracts will be given, the enforcement of the contracts will be given some, they would be, let's say, uh, like the enforcement would be, it would be easy to be enforced. Let's say, in a simpler way, if I may say, that the contracts can be enforced in a simple way, or it can be legally enforced. There would be no hurdles to the enforcement of contracts. Now, when we say that enforcement of contracts is so essential, because it is intricately linked to the arbitration mechanism, in any system, legal system. Now, enforcement of contracts, when there is a dispute arises when there is a violation of the clauses of the contract. Now, if the contract has a valid arbitration clause, or as an annexure has an arbitration agreement to it, now what happens is it will be given, it will be legally valid, and on the basis of that contract, that particular clause can or the legal, I mean, dispute resolution system. So like in nutshell, arbitration, as we have seen with the amendments, that the scope of appeal has gone down, which the challenge, the scope to challenge the arbitral awards has gone down, and and the finality to the arbitral awards have been given utmost importance, because it is only when the finality to the arbitral awards is taken seriously, and it is that it is only when it is only then the importance of arbitration can be or the growth of arbitration can be ensured. So also, let's say international arbitrations in the areas of commercial, investment, construction, energy, and maritime areas or sectors are expected to be seen, to be seen to be on the rise in the coming years. This also owes its relevance to the fact that there will not be India being a the developing economy, which is a fastest growing economy at the moment. uh, the international trade and commerce is going to increase in the coming years, and with that the international arbitrations, the floodgate for international arbitrations are also going to open up. So uh, in like I would like to conclude by saying that the career for the legal practice in arbitration is bright, in the sense that the law students at the moment, the who are studying in their respective law schools or colleges, they need to understand a couple of things here. Um Arbitration, with the passage of time, arbitration will develop into a niche area of practice, which means that arbitration will be seen as a specialized area of legal practice, for which you need to understand that you at this moment, uh, along with your the other subjects, you need to have a thorough understanding of how arbitrations are conducted, the nitty gritties, the essential elements of arbitration practice. um, Starting from drafting a contract to the disposal of the arbitration, at the arbitration tribunal, it has a plethora of rules and legislations in place, which you need to know. Now, given the career prospects, if you are trained enough, you need to understand that you have to be trained in the subject matter. You need to get training certifications, you need to write and showcase your intellectual talent. Should be conversant with the judicial landmark judicial cases, and also should be willing to work in a law firm, where or with a senior counsel, or in a legal in a law office. And you should be open to opportunities, where whenever you find an opportunity to work on an arbitration matter, you should take make use of that. Also, during your internships with let's say with international and national arbitral arbitration law firms, or any law firm for that matter, which practices arbitration, you also have the opportunity to gain experience as arbitral secretaries, or arbitral tribunal secretaries. We do not really have that practice in India at the moment, but like internationally, there are positions that arbitral international arbitral institutions, they allow a person to intern, or even experience as an tribunal secretary, to understand how the entire process of arbitration is conducted. So there are certifications in different organizations, like in the foreign in the international sphere, which allows you to actually get the requisite experience in arbitration. uh, other than that, in today's in today's time, most of the leading law schools, law colleges as well, topmost colleges as well. Along with that, there are private institutions that have come up. They provide courses in arbitration, and you should be able to utilize that to have to carve a niche in your specialization around the arbitration practice. That said, uh, internationally there are top law schools that allow you to specialize only in international arbitration. Let's say, for example, School of International Arbitration in Queen Mary, University of London, QMUL. It is one of the most famous school of international arbitration, and students from all over the world, they go and study that course because that helps them to land up with a job in the international arbitration practice, and that helps them to develop their career. So even if you get like, that is just one example of a arbitration institution. Let's say there are other institutions as well that provides very advanced and developed courses on arbitration. So if you happen to take a year's training in those organizations or institutions, academic institutions, that also would be an added advantage to you in your arbitration practice in India. Apart from that, working on with judges in the judge's office or retired judge's office also gives you a fillip to understanding what is the entire arbitration practice all about. So students who are studying at the moment, they are there in the law schools, try to take avail the opportunity of having internships done under law offices or law firms that has arbitration practice, or the judges offices, retired judges offices, who include themselves in various arbitrations as arbitrators. So that's about it. Thank you.
So thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much. You have wonderfully disseminated the legal knowledge pertaining to the arbitrational law practice and also its importance. Thank you very much. So any questions, you may raise a hand. So I will unmute you, so where you can ask question. So any questions, sir? So I'm very glad that Dinesh Gai sir, who was our previous speaker, was arrived to this meeting. Sir, Dinesh Gai sir, you have any query?
No, it's clear. It's clear. It's a she has done it very wonderfully, and I congratulate her on that grand success.
So we are also congratulate for our wonderful deliberations. Any questions from the students, and any questions from the students and to the madam Sukanya Acharya ji, Rakshita ji, Rakshita. So madam, some students have a doubt regarding this arbitrational. They want to take it as a niche, as you said that. So they want to take it as a niche, as this career prospects. So what is your personal opinion? Do they find any stability in this career kind of a step?
Sir, practically speaking, from a career point of view, sir, we all know that it requires time and efforts to develop a niche, a specialization in any field of law. So it doesn't mean that with respect to arbitration, there is no shortcut to having a career that can be built within a short span of time. All I'm trying to say is, given the guidelines or given the experience or the kind of work that is involved, a student or a a student on the verge of starting their legal practice should give their time and effort to understand the practice surrounding arbitration law in India. So not only they need to know about the laws in place, the rules in place, but also they should be able to work on from the ground level, like preparing the cases and understanding the nature of documents that is required to make the case. So like basically the evidences also, like the art of advocacy, as I told earlier, that you need to understand that whatever you're doing in a court of law, you would be replicating the same thing before the arbitral tribunal. So there is no difference per se. So having understood the art of advocacy, how to cross-examine, what kind of documents, how do you prepare your witnesses, what kind of problems you face, in establishing your claims or establishing your points across, will play a major role. So it is like you prepare yourself from day one in your law school by understanding what the law is, and then understand the gamut of all the other let's say the rules and regulations and the the associated laws that are in place. Like, let's say contract law is also plays a dominant role in arbitration. So because most of the times you see a domestic commercial, international or domestic commercial arbitration arise out of a contractual dispute. So so from the very beginning itself, students have to prepare themselves if they are interested, given their interest in the subject. I believe that getting to work with a good law firm or a or a established law firm with a good arbitration practice will give them a lot of exposure and experience. Other than that, if you like, in order to understand how international arbitration practice works and how Indian practice works, like if you can manage to get an internship or even a some years of experience in an international law firm, that heavily adds to your to your legal practice or knowledge. So in India, so the thing is, like, there are various ways by which you can structure your legal career around arbitration practice. You can avail the opportunities that are there. Now there are a lot of courses which are coming in. There are international courses which are only happening online. So also with that I forgot to mention that the various international webinars are available on YouTube. So students should listen to the discussions and understand, try to make sense of the discussions that happen, not only at the international level but also at the domestic level. We have Nishit Desai, and they are doing wonderful work. They have a website where they periodically come up with updated research papers. So taking inspiration from their work, the law students should kind of update their knowledge by following these websites and the research tools. So it is like you have to work your way up from the ground up. I mean, yeah.
So thank you very much, madam. Thank you. Thank you. Any queries, sir? Any queries from the students' end? Any queries? Diveshri, you have any queries? Most of them thought that so the arbitrational practice is a lucrative practice. Where they
It is a lucrative practice, sir. I agree to that, because we have to understand one thing, that the lucrativity of arbitration practice again boils down to the fact that what is arbitrable and what kind of disputes are arbitrable and what kind of disputes are not arbitrable. So in one of the one of the points that I have mentioned, that there will be a rise in international arbitrations in the coming in the future, because of the kind of trade and commerce, international trade and commerce that are happening in today's time. So when there is a flux, a greater flux of international trade and cross-border transactions happening, there are always possibilities for contractual disputes to arise. Then with the liberalization of foreign investments in different sectors, when foreign investors come into picture, international commercial arbitrations take place. So not only that, so like the scope of investment arbitration, like the international treaty investment arbitration also, you can see that there will be a scope for people to participate in, or to gain experience in international, investment treaty arbitrations, which involves, the foreign investors on one hand and the host country, the government of a host country on the other hand. So we know that the Vodafone case has been, fought between Indian government and the, Vodafone company, which has showed us the fact, that like when the governments are liberalizing their foreign direct investment policies, they should also be aware of their international obligations under the bilateral investment treaties. So in that way, like investment arbitration, commercial arbitrations, domestically, also internationally, will be on the rise.
Do you mean to say that the courts have failed in their duty in discussing the justice concerning with the commercial transactions? Do you mean to say that the courts system is being failed?
Yeah. So, sir, we know that if you look at the data, that there are almost around 4 crore cases pending before the high courts and district courts in India. Now we do know that the commercial courts have been put in place. They have been they are in place, but then how do we understand, or how do we balance the efficacy between a private form of adjudication through arbitration and the commercial courts, which is nonetheless a traditional, which is a wing or a segment of the traditional justice delivery system. So it's again going back to the advantages of having the point, like the advantages of like having flexible procedures, getting rid of the complexities in procedures, then the party autonomy, the way they want to design the arbitration, it definitely gives them a leverage, as against the court system or the commercial court system. The commercial courts will definitely, will be a competition to arbitration, practice. Definitely, it will be a competition. But given the way arbitration is developing itself in the recent times, I think the option to either arbitrate or take the dispute to commercial courts will be open to the companies. As I initially told, that the companies, they adopt a dispute resolution policy. So it is not necessary that all the disputes will only be arbitrated. They can also be taken to the commercial courts. Let's say if the amount that is involved in the dispute is very less, they definitely would want to incur a large costs to get benefits or to get their claims adjudicated through arbitration. They would definitely take help of the commercial courts within the jurisdiction of their disputes. So I understand that it is the decision of the company as to what kind of, and the counsels, again, the lawyers will be in a good position, should be in a good position to advise the companies as to, with respect to what matters arbitration should take place, and with respect to what matters, you can, litigate the, matters before the commercial courts or traditional courts. So it depends on the relief also.
One more question from our audience. So please speak directly. I'm not able to view who has sent this. So when litigation brings more benefit in terms of compensation, monetary benefit, why an advocate should bring in arbitration? Does not he cause loss to his clients? That is the question of our audience.
So it is a very there is a little bit of a understanding issue here. Like advocates do not decide whether arbitration will actually take place or not. It is the prerogative of the parties. As I mentioned already, that arbitration is a consensual process of dispute resolution. That means the consent of the party is the foremost and the most fundamental aspect of having a dispute resolved through arbitration. Now arbitration is always based on the arbitration agreement, or the agreement between the parties to take their dispute to the arbitration tribunal. So an advocate will have a say at the time of drafting the contract, at the time of advising the companies, right, whether to arbitrate between whether to take the nature of dispute to arbitration or not. Let's say they can also the advocate, it depends totally on the practice experience of the advocate, how they are going to advise the company, so that they can also ensure that the company do not incur losses in the future. Arbitration being a cost effective, speedier, flexible, informal, and mostly the consent of the parties, it is a autonomous exercise, like where the parties consent to what they want to achieve out of that arbitration. So basically the idea of arbitration only starts at the time of contract drafting. So like if two business organizations are entering into a contract, at that point in time they will either have have to have a arbitration clause in place, or they will have to have a separate arbitration agreement, which states that the disputes arising out of any or all disputes arising out of the contract will be decided by the arbitral tribunal, and then the procedure will be laid out. So I think this idea is not right, that when a litigation gives a lot of advantage, there is no guarantee to the fact that a party may win, or party may lose, and the party may be gaining a lot of more compensation, or may not gain a lot of more compensation. This is a wrong way to approach the whole idea. I think the idea, as I said, begins with the contract. The idea of having a dispute settled through arbitration begins with the contract.
So thank you, madam. So one more, our Dinesh Kai sir will ask some questions.
Please.
And also,
Yes,
and I have also one more query, that the conciliation, the mediation is the same thing as the any differences between these two, and also please answer altogether. Sir, Dinesh sir, please sir.
Please, madam.
yes, sir.
Madam Sukanya Acharya.
Yes, sir.
I have a query because I'm also practicing on arbitration side in
Right,
High
sir.
Court.
Right, sir.
No, the thing is, because I joined very late, I joined just 15 minutes ago. Are all the companies bound to follow, to have this clause of arbitration clause to be there during their disputes and all that? If there is a contract between the two companies, one is a national, other is abroad, is the clause of arbitration, can they go to civil court also? Can they incorporate the clause of civil court also? As per me, no.
Yes, so I'll answer to that. Firstly, sir, Purushottam sir, what the question you asked, conciliation is not the same as mediation. A conciliator is appointed. A person will act as a conciliator to the let's say to the settlement of the differences between two opposing parties. So conciliation, there is no finality. The conciliator does not have the power to bring about a finality to the outcome of the settlement of the differences. So a conciliator can help the companies or the disputing parties to reconcile their differences. They can bring them to a table, and then they can actually help each other understand what their differences are. Like how they can amicably settle their differences, right? And then they can write each other, there can be a facilitation between the two parties to understand each other's claims and then come to a settlement. Let's say a credit lending company which lends credit to public or to business houses. They have lent X amount of money to X company or Y company. Now, the company has failed to pay the installment amount, right? Now, this kind of a situation where the company has defaulted in paying the credit lending company the amount of money that they should have, paid, and the amount has accrued along with interest. So a conciliators can be appointed, and they can actually be asked to, discuss their positions, what are the claims, existing between the two parties, and they can, make them come to a conclusion. So one of the party will either disagree that they do not have this many claim as the other party is is claiming to have. So basically conciliation is a way of bringing two parties close, together, and amicably settling the dispute, so that it doesn't, the dispute can be amicably settled. That's it. It doesn't need to have any judicial intervention or court intervention. On the other hand, mediation, a mediator is appointed in a mediation process, where again the differences and the disputes between the two parties are facilitated by the mediator. At the end of the mediation process, they look into each other's claims and considerations, and they try to come to an amicable settlement. If both the parties give their consent, upon achieving their consent, what happens is the mediator writes a mediation agreement, and both the parties sign the agreement, and that mediation agreement can be enforced by the court of law. But there is also another thing, that at the end of the day, mediation can also fail if the other party do not agree to settle their disputes amicably through in the presence of the mediator. So these are essentially the processes. Both try to settle the matters out of court without going to the arbitration, because again, arbitration is also a similar judicial process, where the judges award has the status of the final award, and there is finality of the arbitral award, but it is unlike conciliation and mediation. So coming to your question, so the vital point you need to understand as a lawyer here is that if you are representing a company and the company has certain claims, is he online? I am not able to.
He's online.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so responding to your query here, so you have to understand that if you are representing a company and the company has a claim with another party, another business connection or business party, so you'll have to see that what does the contract actually say. Now, I would stress upon the fact here that the contract is the main agreement or the document which will allow the parties to understand what should be their strategy to resolve their dispute. Now, initially, as I told that, sir, the contract needs to have a dispute resolution clause. Now, the companies are not bound to only follow arbitration. At the time when two companies or two commercial houses are entering into a contractual agreement, they will have a dispute resolution clause at the end of the agreement, towards the end of the agreement. Now, it is absolutely the prerogative of the companies. When the companies negotiate the contract between with each other, they will see whether the dispute resolution, what should be the dispute resolution policy. So let's say, for example, the parties are more interested to go to the commercial courts, so they will incorporate a dispute resolution clause stating that any or all of the disputes arising out of this contract will be subjected to the jurisdiction of the respective commercial court, right? On the contrary, if they think that the amount that will be involved, the time that will be taken to for the performance of the contract is huge, so they will have to be guided by their counsels and by their executives that the cost involved will be too high, that, and therefore there are various other factors also that needs to be taken into consideration while drafting that dispute resolution clause, that whether going to the court will be more cost effective for them, efficient, efficiencies in time and cost, they will have to gauge between the two factors, like whether taking the dispute to commercial court, they can have better justice, or seeing the arbitration performance of arbitration lawyers, or the case laws, the way they have been, the precedents that has been set. So seeing that, they will actually take a decision whether to take the matter to the arbitration or not. All of this decision is done at the negotiation phase of a particular contract. So there can be tires also. Let's say they would say that if there is a dispute between two parties arising out of a particular contract, they will try to amicably settle the disputes through ADR mechanisms, like let's say conciliation or mediation. If conciliation mediation fails within the a time period that has been set under the dispute resolution clause, what they would do is they would say that it would be a med arb, like, so there is a type of dispute resolution which is known as med arb. The dispute will be firstly taken to mediation. If mediation fails, it will be followed by arbitration. Now let's say if they say that we are going to take the matter to arbitration, they give their consent to having their dispute resolved through arbitration only. There cannot be like two systems existing at the same time. So if it is arbitration, it has to be arbitration, because again, arbitration, the arbitral award given by pronounced by the arbitral tribunal is also is equally binding on the the parties, given the exceptions that the arbitral award on only various very minor like narrow grounds can be taken up before the Supreme Court as a challenge to the as a challenge. So my point here is so it is absolutely the prerogative, the consent, the autonomy of the parties who are drafting that agreement, that where they want to take their matter to be resolved to. Like it is very easy for let's say domestic parties under domestic disputes, but for international parties, like international commercial parties, they prefer arbitration to litigation because of the existing delays that happen, and the huge amount of pendency, and the major factor is the adjournments that the opposite counsel they take during the process of litigation. So that actually affects their it affects their time and cost efficiency equally. So all in all, it is a decision that needs to be decided upon at the very beginning of their drafting of the contract.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you. Wonderfully, you have disseminated wonderfully. I congratulate you for your wonderful lecture.
Thank you, sir.
It's a completely an enlightenment for all of us. So I thank you very much, one and all. So presently, Diveshri, Shaktidhar, Venkatraman, Rakshita, Usha, Jyoti. So everybody. Yeah, ma'am.
I think sir wants to say something. You need to unmute him.
Yes.
Can you just unmute him?
Can I suggest one thing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are a senior counsel. We have to agree for your words.
Yes, sir. Definitely. He has muted himself. Oh my God.
Right, sir. Please speak, sir. Dinesh, sir.
I was saying that since it is a lecture for the students who are yet to join the law as a profession, so my suggestion is that whatever specialization you want to go in for, I'm audible, na?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Whatever specialization you want to go in for, that is a subsequent process, whether arbitration or civil law or criminal law or land revenue and all that. Yeah. What my practical experience has been, what I have been guiding to my interns and all that,
Yeah.
that one has to practice at least for 1 to 2 years before the district court to learn the procedure.
Yes.
The reason is, if you directly go and appear before the Honorable High Court, before the High Court judge, he puts a query on procedure. You are not aware of the procedure. You learn what is the civil procedure, what is the criminal procedure, and what is the whatever is the other factors that can be practically be got done only by joining some senior at the district court level. So whenever a law student comes out of to join somewhere, he should, because when one completes the law, he is always having daydreams and all that. Yes, everything is ready and the plate is ready, and he should come and have the breakfast and all that. Nothing like it.
Yes.
You have to prepare for your basic procedure. You must at least go for minimum 6 months with some lawyer at the district court level to know the procedure, to go through the procedure, because even in the arbitration law, when the arbitrator is appointed, there is a complete civil procedure. The witnesses are examined, they are cross-examined, they are re-examined, everything is there. And number two, even after the arbitration awards are passed by the arbitrators of who are the retired High Court judges or the Supreme Court judges, that is also subject to challenge under Section 30. Madam knows, under Section 34, before the learned sessions district judge, where you file objection and that order is made a court order, and then that is further challengeable before the Honorable High Court in the shape of FU, RFAs, and all that. Then Supreme Court. That no, there is no law in the law of land for restraining anybody from approaching the higher court. There is that's everybody's right to go to the higher court, challenging any sort of, you can even civil, criminal, arbitral. The aggrieved party has a right to go to the even Supreme Court, SLP under Section 136. So what my suggestion is that instead of directly joining the profession at High Court, even if one's father or grandfather is judge of High Court or a senior advocate in the High Court, he or she must join at least for 6 months to 1 year to know the basic procedure at the district court level. That's what Madam, do you agree to this?
Definitely, sir. It applies as I earlier stated that the art of advocacy, everything which is akin to the court procedures, whatever happens in the court of law takes place before the arbitral tribunal. So you need to know the basics, the art of advocacy, in the sense of how to cross-examine, and all that needs to be thoroughly understood. So it is always advisable that you practice before the courts of law also, and you be
with the original jurisdiction. Yes. And number two, yes, that's what I was suggesting, because that stuck to my mind that I must say this thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so every queries, every doubts, and every confusion or a chaos that is being removed in our mind.
So actually, there is one query put out by.
So so as the time is already 7.
Yes.
So you are agreed for 5 to 6:30, and you are extended.
Yes.
So you have walked more.
Yes.
So you have walked
that
more,
is fine,
and it is an appreciable, and it is an intellectual,
that is fine,
intellectual discourse and intellectual kind of discussion. So as
she has done it wonderfully.
Definitely, we have to appreciate a lot. She has prepared a lot actually, and so the last evening she was yelling out that she will deliver a PPT. It shows her studiousness for every law student and lawyers should have. So the society, I remember one word. Society is not static, but it is dynamic. It is keep on changing. So as such, we need to upgrade ourselves. This is so, and Madam also told that. So once you want to become an arbitral lawyer, a lawyer who specializes in the arbitration has some priorities or prerequisites to be adopted ourselves. So whereas one she has mentioned that continuous learning process, we should be upgrading ourselves with going with the research websites and doing all the research, doing articles, writing articles. So every other steps we need to upgrade. So this is one priority that we have to adopt ourselves. So this type of
So basically,
webinars will.
sir, the understanding, as sir has mentioned, that it needs to go from the ground level.
Ground level.
Starting from understanding what the law is actually from the law school, to be conversant with the law, and then how to apply the law before the court of law.
The courts
That-
are the courts. Even we should not we should appreciate courts.
Yes.
That the courts are striving very hard to
No,
implement.
they have done wonderfully, actually, sir. If you see the way they have,
right. So they have implemented the commercial codes. They have introduced the Commercial Codes Act. They are striving very hard. And also, I forgot to mention you, madam.
Yes.
So this student law and society. So as you said that there are a huge number of cases which are pending before the
Yes.
lower courts. As there is a number of judges are very less
Yeah.
in combating the issue.
Yeah.
As such, the Students' Law and Society has pledged in training the law students to become judges.
Yeah.
So we are doing the training process for the law students.
Right.
So with a very kind of meager things we are doing, meager amount we
No,
are
I
training.
understand completely, sir, because you are serving the society by way of helping the not so privileged sections of students. So this is a very noble pursuit. I think like I'll
Thank
be
you very much, madam.
very
Thank you very much.
glad to be a part
So
of.
definitely. I will also very grateful for you. You have come here, and sir has come for the second time. Every webinar he used to come, and he will give some inputs to students. He used to give inputs to lawyers and also the speakers. So it is his gratefulness. So this is where we have to continue further for the generation. We have to protect our generation.
Definitely, sir. This is an ongoing process.
Definitely. So thank you very much. I will give Sukanya Acharya madam. So whoever requires the contact number of her. So there are many questions which are unleft, which are not being answered because of the time constraint.
Yes.
So I request the audience to approach this society and ask me, and you can. So
I can always forward the replies.
Definitely.
Yeah, to you, and we can, if you have a common
Madam,
group.
kindly share the PPT also, madam.
Yeah, I will share it with you. I will email it to you.
Right, madam. So I will share the madam's number also. So if you have any queries pertaining with the arbitration practice and the scope and career, please do contact her directly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you one and all for joining this program.
Thank you so much, sir.
So this is a continuous learning process. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing this, sir.
Thank you. It is our pleasure, madam. It is our pleasure. We'll be continuing organizing these webinars on every Saturdays. So
and keep me in touch.
Definitely.
Yes, sir. I will definitely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You see, only thing that we will not, the only parameter that we have fixed for the speaker is bona fide interest.
Yes.
So any person has a bona fide interest to disseminate their legal knowledge. Here is the platform in India. Here is the platform in Karnataka. We are providing an opportunity to express their views, share their knowledge, share their legal knowledge, and be a part of the upliftment.
No,
of
I
the
think
society.
it is a wonderful platform. Any platform which helps students to understand the nuances of law. I think to understand how to become a better lawyer. It is a very good initiative, sir.
Thank
I
you
really
very much.
appreciate you for that.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. So thank you all. Thank you one and all. Closing this session. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Yeah.